Is burst Qiqi viable? Well, I raise you this question. Can she deal damage? Yes. Can she heal? Well, let me show you. You apply the mark. Can she heal? Boom! Full HP. Hey, what's up guys? Today we're finally going to be talking about Qiqi with a full Qiqi guide. Now right away I just want to start by saying I don't think Maidens is the best set on Qiqi. I don't think it ever has been, and I think it's kind of a trap. Like, it can be okay at times, but it's just not as good as other sets, and that's what we're going to talk about. I pride myself in giving you guys the accurate information without misleading you or, clickbaiting you into something that's not true, which is why right away I want to tell you guys why I think Maidens isn't the best set on Qiqi. Before we get into it, I always just want to let you guys know that I love streaming and I stream most nights on Twitch, so come watch me if you want. Link in the description. So as I said, the first thing we're going to talk about is why Maidens isn't good on Qiqi compared to other sets. Like, it's not terrible, it's just a lot worse than other options, and we're going to talk about why. First of all, in the initial clip that was from my stream in the intro, you saw me not only do a lot of damage, but also heal my Diluc up to full HP in a decently fast, and I was running Noblesse in that clip, not Maidens. Actually, if we do look at what Maidens does, yes, it'll give you 15% more healing effectiveness, and yes, it'll increase your healing received once you use your Q or your E, which is nice, right? It is a lot of healing, but you don't need it because Qiqi already heals so much. Even without any artifacts or a lot of investment in Qiqi, she already heals you so much that you don't need that much healing. It's why late game, a lot of people are starting to use Jean over Qiqi and Abyss, because yes, Qiqi heals more, but Jean will heal enough while dealing more damage. So the way you should be building Qiqi is, yes, like, she'll always be a good healer. So instead of investing into more healing that you don't need, right? So you might as well make her deal damage, make her a burst support, a more effective support while still being a healer without having to invest a bunch in her healing. She'll still heal you a ton and do more than just that. Now, I know to a lot of people or new players this may sound weird, like, why would you not want more healing? But I'll show you guys in a demonstration. But basically she heals so much that you don't need more. Alright, now we're going to do a quick demonstration as to why you don't need Maidens. So just before we get into it, I am not running Maidens, and I'm not running attack percent either. Like, I'm literally running just a burst support build, no Maidens at all, and let's test out the healing here, okay? So as you guys can see, my child needs over 15k, roughly 17k HP. So what we're going to do, we're going to just apply the mark on Qiqi, press E, apply the mark, then we're going to DPS on child, and look at my HP. It's going to go all the way to full in maybe 5 seconds, and you see I'm fully healed from that. And there's no reason to build more healing. I didn't need a bonus from Maidens. I didn't need to build full attack percent. It doesn't matter. I can still build her burst support so that I deal a ton of damage whenever I ult, while at the same time still being able to heal as much as I want to. Now, the few situations when Maidens can actually be good is when your Qiqi is really low investment, low level, and needs more healing. But that rarely happens because once you ascend her past 60, so 60 out of 70, you unlock this talent which transforms her from an okay healer to an amazing healer without even needing any artifacts, without needing Maidens. Basically, you get this talent, and this is how you should be playing her. You want to try to maximize this talent and use it all the time. You apply a mark on an enemy when you attack them, then it'll just provide a ton of healing to that character. So you should apply the mark, swap to that character, attack, heal up, and then you're good. And so because this heals so much, you don't actually need to build Maidens, you don't need to maximize her healing because you'll already be healing a ton, so you might as well maximize her damage. Alright guys, now we're going to talk about the good sets on Qiqi and what you should be running and why they're better than Maidens. So before we even get into artifact stats, we're talking about sets. So for artifact sets, there are actually a few good options. I run a 2-piece Noblesse with a 2-piece Blizzard Destroyer, and this is the best for damage on Qiqi, making her a burst support that can still obviously heal a ton. And this will increase all your crowd damage, so your E and your Q, and significantly increase your elemental burst damage, which if you guys don't know is actually insane. 400% at level 6 is really good. Now obviously this is cryo, so when you melt it's only 1.5 times damage, but still 400% is considerable when we compare it to Diluc, who obviously is pyro, which is better, but still at level 8 it's only 320. So 400% at level 6 is nothing to scoff at. So Noblesse really helps with that. On top of that, Blizzard Destroyer does give you 15% cryo damage bonus, which not only helps your ult damage, but will also increase your E damage. And now your E isn't huge, but it still can do a couple thousand every swing, which isn't nothing. And then your ultimate will be a nice burst, giving her that burst support damage while being your healer, while primarily being a healer. And so I think this is usually overall the best set. Now there are other really good options that might actually be better depending on how you use her or your comp or whatever. Now since Qiqi's burst does a lot of damage, you want to be able to use it as often as possible, but one of her problems is that it costs 80 energy and she doesn't have a lot of energy recharge. So running like a 2-piece Scholar and 2-piece Exile sets, both of them or just one of them can actually be really good and potentially better than Maidens, because spamming your ultimate is more important than healing a bit more when you don't need that. The reason this is good is because 20% energy recharge is a lot, especially because Qiqi as ultimate, yes, it does a ton of damage, but it also costs 80 energy and she doesn't generate many particles. So she doesn't get her ult super often. So having extra energy recharge really helps. So running a 2-piece Exile, especially because 4-star artifacts on like your flower and like your feather and stuff isn't the biggest of deals, is really nice. And you can pair it with 2-piece Scholar if you just want a ton of energy recharge. 2-piece Glad is an okay set because it gives you attack percent, which is fine for damage and healing, but it seems to be less efficient than other sets for damage. And as we've been over multiple times, the extra healing bonus isn't a big deal, not something you really need. Now we're going to talk about Noblesse Oblige. So first of all, the 2-piece set is great. It increases your elemental burst damage by 20%. It's just very nice, especially since your scaling on your burst is so high. Now one of the problems with Qiqi's burst is that it requires 80 energy, and because of that and because of her low like particle generation, low energy recharge, all that stuff, it's really hard to spam her ultimate super often. So because of that, I recommend running the 4-piece set of Noblesse on another support if you can. If you're running Qiqi with like a Bennett or with, let's say someone who isn't another healer, let's say you're running her with like a Xingqiu or someone else that can run 4-piece Noblesse, I would recommend that over running it on Qiqi. Why? Because yes, this 20% attack is insane and you want it on a lot of support characters, but for Qiqi, it's good, but it'd be better on other supports because Qiqi can't always have her ultimate up. Since her elemental burst does cost 80 energy and it's not always available since she doesn't generate a lot of particles, you can't be spamming your ultimate too often. And because of that, this 4-piece set will only be active like 10-15% of the time, making it more efficient as a set on other supports if you can. Now, I don't personally think it's bad on Qiqi, and I think you might want to run it. But I personally just think that like 2-piece Noblesse with 2-piece Cryo will increase your damage overall because it buffs your ult damage and also your E, which you can spam, especially with Sacrificial Sword, or even like the energy recharge to get your ultimate more, and trying to run Noblesse on another support. So yeah, I'm still a bit indecisive on the 4-piece. I just feel that since she doesn't have her ult up too often, you'll only get this up like 10%, 15% of the time. So I don't think it's efficient. But for those reasons, I think 2-piece Noblesse with another 2-piece like 2-piece Cryo is just a lot of damage and very good at making your Qiqi not only a burst support, but also a great healer by default. Alright, now we're going to talk about artifact stats on Qiqi. So as you guys know, her healing does scale with attack. We've been over this many times in this video, so I don't want it to sound like I'm repeating myself. But even with just like attack percent on your hourglass and attack percent on like some substats, with like a sword, obviously that gives you a nice base attack that you level up. You don't want to be keeping your sword at a low level. You will have more than enough healing, meaning you don't need to stack attack percent on every piece because then you lose out on a lot of damage. And if you guys are unaware, the difference between having elemental damage bonus on a goblet and attack percent on the goblet, DPS wise, is actually pretty huge. This was my old Qiqi goblet where I used to run attack percent, and I realized after testing it and theory crafting and talking to a bunch of people that just running her as a burst support with cryo damage will give you much more damage overall, despite the slight loss in healing, which is not a big deal. So because of that, you want to build her how you build any burst support, meaning elemental damage on the goblet, so cryo, attack percent on the sands, and crit rate or crit damage on the circlet. The DPS difference between crit and attack percent is huge, guys, and the only thing you're missing out on is a bit of healing, as I mentioned. For substats, you want the same thing. You were looking for like crit damage, crit rate, energy recharge, especially. You really want energy recharge on Qiqi, and attack percent. So crit, ER, attack percent are the stuff you're looking for. So yeah, don't beat yourselves up about getting perfect artifacts. I still think attack is viable, but for a burst support Qiqi, it's just not as good as crit, and it's just not as good as like crowd damage because you will lose out on a lot of damage. I just wanted to record a clip like while editing just to clarify something. I'm showing you guys the most optimal Qiqi build to make her a burst support that deals damage while also healing a huge amount, healing more than enough while dealing damage as like a bonus, whereas a Maiden's with like a full attack build on Qiqi won't be doing much damage. Now, the reason I'm specifying this is because you still can run attack percent if you want. You can run attack on everything and try to maximize your healing, but that just isn't optimal for like late game Qiqi. But in the early game, or if you're low on artifacts, or if you just want a pure healer, you can still do that, but I don't think it's optimal. For weapons, I highly recommend something with high energy recharge. Sacrificial Sword, especially at high refinement, is amazing for her. Definitely what you should be using if you have it, because of how long her E cooldown is, as you guys can see. And on top of that, it gives a lot of energy recharge, which is really nice. If you don't have this sword, any energy recharge sword can be good, and even like something with an attack percent to increase your healing can be fine, but energy recharge is definitely better. And a good free-to-play option can be the Festering Desire, which isn't nearly as good as Sacrificial Sword, but can suffice because of the okay energy recharge. Just to quickly go over talents, we talked about the passives in like the intro, and yes, you want to be attacking, basically applying this mark and attacking with it, and your ultimate also applies the mark. So alternate between the two, but basically for talent priority, maximize Q and then E. Both of them do damage, especially Q. Q does a ton, as we saw. It has a very high scaling, and E does a bit of damage, but with my build it's still like 4k when you proc it, and then like 1k a swing, so it's not nothing. It does add up, and it can heal. But as we saw in the intro, the way you want to be playing her is maximizing your mark and healing with the mark. You don't really want to be attacking with Qiqi apart from using this passive, and then you just want to be attacking on the character that's low HP so that they can not only DPS but also heal up. Qiqi is a 5-star character, so I don't know if we have to talk about constellations, but do note that if you get the first one, you regenerate energy, which is really helpful because of the high cost of your elemental burst. Now for the comps for Qiqi, honestly, she's a support and a really good healer, so you can run her pretty much anywhere whenever you need a healer. For me personally, since my healers are Bennett and Qiqi, what I do is for one Abyss Floor, I'll put Qiqi, and for the other, I'll put Bennett, and I'll use them both as my supports. Now, I try to put Qiqi on the team that needs cryo the most, so let's say you're running Razor, and for Razor, you want Super Conduct, obviously, to deal more physical damage. Now, what you want with him is a cryo support. You can run someone like Kea if you want to, but if you need a healer and a cryo support in one slot, you can run Qiqi, and she does work well with them. Now keep in mind that Qiqi's rate of application for cryo is actually pretty low. It's lower than like Kea, but with the E around you, it can be long enough to be useful, and she is a 2-in-1, a cryo support and a healer. So running her with someone that needs a cryo reaction, a cryo support, can be very smart. So just as a general rule, Qiqi can fit most teams when you need a healer and can be a cryo support if you need to. Although her cryo application isn't as good as someone like Kea or Chongyun, it is still good enough, especially because she's a healer. And it gets much better if you have Sacrificial Sword because her E uptime will be a lot higher. And obviously the elements that like cryo are pyro for melt. Now keep in mind, sometimes you might want to vaporize with Sing Chu instead of melting, but cryo with pyro generally is good because of melt, obviously. And with electro if you're running a physical DPS for super conduct. And you can also freeze with hydro if you are running a freeze comp, if you're running like Blizzard Strayer and you want stuff to be frozen, but for that usually Chongyun is the go-to. But yeah, overall, flexible healer, cryo support, can do burst damage as well, but mainly can be a healer in like any comp. So I'm honestly really scared to upload this because I know a lot of people are going to be upset saying Maiden is good or whatever. And like, yeah, it's not terrible. You can use it in the early game or whatever, but I honestly think you should stop building it because it's just not worth it on someone like Qiqi. Maybe on other characters, but for Qiqi, she already has so much healing that running another set is just like an added bonus because you're already going to heal enough, as you saw in the beginning, but now you're going to be dealing more damage or whatever, or even more energy recharge if you choose like Scholar or Exile, because you don't need the extra healing that Maidens gives you. So I hope I made my point clear. Yes, you do need investment for her burst damage to be good, so she scales well into the late game, but for healing, you don't need a lot of investment. So early game or late game, whatever, you don't need to stack a bunch of attack percent and stack Maidens on her because she's already an amazing healer by default once you ascend her past 60. So I hope I cleared things out. I really don't want this video to like make people upset or anything, but after testing her and using her extensively, like literally guys, I've been using her since I pulled her. I have her at about friendship 10, like she's about to hit friendship 10. I've been using her forever. I've just been scared to make a video on her because I would run her on Maidens and I noticed like this can't be optimal. And so I tested and talked to other theory crafters and all that and found out that burst Qiqi seems to be the way to play her because you're already going to have a bunch of healing, but now you also deal damage, especially in the late game, so why not run her this way? And so I'm just doing this video to basically show you guys how I build Qiqi and how I think you should be building Qiqi, because I believe that building Maidens on her is usually a waste of resources, especially in the late game. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video was informative, and I hope I inspired you to use Qiqi or to build her this way. That being said, subscribe if you want to. If you don't, that's okay too, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.